All right. We're going live. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. Greetings, everyone. Hopefully, we have enough light in here. I'm going to try to make sure get some more light. This doesn't seem like. See if this helps out at all. Okay, that's a little bit better. Okay, thank you guys for joining. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. Before we get started, as usual, I give a disclaimer. This video is for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her homework and research regarding the information being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. In the event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource is not liable or responsible for any misuse of this information. These are simply my opinions on the topic. With that being said, all rights are reserved. Now, to get into the topic, I wanted the title of this video to be key quotes, terminologies, key terms to look up. See Money Boy in the chat says, "What's up, family?" Let me read what he's got. Said, What up, family? I thought something happened to you. How have you been?" What up, Money Boy in the building, fam? What up? I've been here, Money Boy. You've been keeping up. I decided to come back to YouTube. I did a video not too long ago, why I went dark. When I decided to come back to YouTube, I'm not sure temporarily how long. I'm working on trying to start a Patreon account just to give you guys an update, some of the technical issues that I'm having, my situation dealing with the internet. I no longer had the same access to the internet provider I had before, so I've got to make some changes because the one company I'm with, they don't really have the bandwidth that I need. Some videos that I would like to do dealing with screen capture when I need to upload when I don't go live. But I do appreciate you joining, Money Boy. Looks like you're the only person here. I would like to come before you guys earlier, but as you guys obviously see, I'm at the work slavery plantation, as I call it. But without further ado, I wanted to get into the topic dealing with this video. Is this is key terms to research and quotations to investigate in depth. I wanted to go over once again. I did a video like this in the past, but I thought it was important for me to kind of go over this information because I did notice, and big shout out to Currency 365 for sharing my videos, giving me the encouragement to come back. And I saw that video he did not too long ago. I watched a portion of where he mentioned the term legalese, and I'll see if I can go over that legalese terminology again. I do have some notes with me, so just bear with me here. I'm going to try to find that real quick, the notes that I had specifically on legalese. It deals with the court system. It's very important. As you know, the legal judicial system uses legalese, and what legalese is, it's a specialized language of the legal profession. It's used to replace plain talk or plain English, legalese. So that's why when people go on the court and stuff like that, they don't understand the terminology. Obviously, they have a separate dictionary for people to study who are studying for the bar exam. That's the Black's Law Dictionary. They have updated editions, by the way. What to go over to get right into the meat and potatoes. Here's some key terms that I would please like you guys to look up and research these terms and quotations in depth. You want to look up the definition of the word person. Please want to look up person. You also want to look up the difference between natural person as well. You also want to look up the definition of corporation. Many of these are going to be definitions, terminologies, quotations to please look up. Thank you guys for joining. For those of you all who just joined, appreciate you. And also you want to look up the color of law. This is another key. It's like a quotation. Look up color of law, what it means. You want to look up the term de facto. This is an actual term spelled D as in David, E as in Edward, F as in Frank, A as in Allen, C as in cup, T as in Tom, O is in Oscar. Look up de facto. What that term means. You also want to look up plausible deniability. Plausible deniability. This is something that they use within the legal system where judges and lawyers can act like, I don't want to spoil it for you all, but this like gives them kind of a disclaimer, a leeway out where they can act like they don't know what you're talking about when people are brought up UCC, or they say patriot mythology. They always want to try to redirect one, steer them in the wrong direction. They don't want the left hand to know what the right hand is doing. So to provide clarification to you all out there, turn this down. Turn that down. Oh boy, as you guys see, I'm at the plantation. Matter of fact, I'm gonna put this up for the time being so I can still hear what's going on. But please look up these terms. Again, I went over person, natural person. You want to look up the definition of corporation. And a lot of these terms, if you have a Black's Law dictionary, you want to even compare it to Webster's dictionary, what we were taught in regular grade school. I was mentioning to a friend of mine yesterday, which was Friday. We're in the Saturday now, Saturday morning, to be exact. The time is 1:02 a.m. October 19th. I was having a conversation with a friend, as we had many conversations, and I brought up, and I mentioned this to him before in the past. I said we should have actually been learning civics, which I didn't know originally. I thought, wasn't sure if it was history, which some high schools offered a class. Well, we should have been learning this type of information back in college, as well as, I mean, why I say college, I mean elementary school and middle school. We should have been taking physics back then, actually, by the way. So going over these key terms, Title 28, Section 3002. You want to look up Title 28 of the United States Code, Section 3002, subsection 15A, where it unequivocally states the United States is a federal corporation. You can look that up on Yahoo or Google search engine. Please look up Title 28, Section 3002. So the title of this video deals with key terms, and which is another form of terminology that deals with definitions to investigate and research in depth. You want to familiarize yourself. I forgot to also mention this video is also open Q&A. So the few of you all who are watching are welcome to chime in. If you have any questions, you're welcome. Feel free to chime in at any time. So to finish going back over, these are some terms that I felt is important, because when I come across a lot of people, I have people that ask me, say, hey, Dorsey, what do I start off with that deals with this redemption information? Where do I go? And I want to say a big shout out to Yusuf L. I saw him go live the other night. Yusuf did a very excellent video. He answered questions for people. I actually checked this video out, chimed in briefly. Yusuf is at a higher level than I am. He's very knowledgeable, and there's others out there that I can mention and say the name. But the reason I bring up Yusuf a lot, big shout out to him. He shared this video I did a few years ago on the black card. I did some years back. That video went viral. The one particular video I had reached over 80,000 views before I took it down. Some of you all know the reason why. Once I start a Patreon account, I can go into more detail about that. Real answers, real facts. I can go over real information that I'm aware of. And I want to say, similar to, I've been checking out the video games lately. I'm just using this as an example to compare, but they've been talking about Grand Theft Auto 6 is coming out. You might say, what does this have to do with this video? Well, they mentioned there's an insider or alleged leaker. And I want to say that's sort of what I'm like. I'm like an insider because I attended an event some years ago, a private clandestine event. And it was real, contrary to popular belief. This was a real event. So those that question my credibility, how am I able to know about this type of information? How am I able to articulate myself the way that I do? I did do my research prior to attending this event. I did study what was known as the sovereign citizen movement. I don't call it that term. That's actually a made up term. There's people that stated to me you cannot use two nouns. It's an umbrella term that's used to discredit people from looking into this type of information, from researching, investigating, because they don't want the general public, the mass of the general public, to learn this type of information. The ruling class elite, keep this type of information very exclusive, very private. But I discovered with a private handful of people some years ago when I first started learning about this information that it goes very high up into the private sector, the private elite free sector. There's a difference between the private sector that's rich versus the wealthy class that's high up, that is behind the scenes. My friend calls them the shadow people, by the way, to kind of give you guys more insight into this. So right now, in case you guys are joining me, I'm going over key terms to please research and investigate. By the way, looks like, okay, I wasn't sure. Okay, Alan Michaels in the chat says peace, greetings to you, big shout out to you. Money Boy says nuggets, appreciate you, Money Boy, very much. And if you guys can give me the thumbs, shoot me a thumbs up, lets the haters know and the trolls out there know you support me, you like what I'm doing. Feel free to leave a comment section after this video is finished uploading. For those out there, you know, I appreciate it. I do read the comments, even if I'm not able to respond. Big shout out to you. I normally at least try to leave a love emoji. Appreciate you. So just to further reiterate, because we do have haters and trolls, and to further reiterate, there's people, they don't want you to learn this information. So the reason I brought that example up with Grand Theft Auto, that's GTA 6. They're working on this information that's coming out. It's being leaked out by Insider from, I heard Rockstar has multiple studios, not just Rockstar Studios in the United States, but overseas in India, some information leaked out. The Black Discovery Channel says, what up tonight, huh? Greetings to you, Black Discovery Channel. Thank you for joining. So I'm like an insider. That's what I do in comparison to that event, says my dude. Appreciate you. So that event I attended some years ago, that's what I'm doing. I'm one of the few people. I originally, some years back, did sign a non-disclosure agreement. However, I felt that non-disclosure agreement at the time, I felt personally that's null and void, because they, in my opinion, violated the terms of the agreement when they did not fund us, because certain individuals messed up and they punished everybody else as a result when they cut off the black cards that we received at the time, which I felt, in my opinion, was unfair. And I do understand, but I felt at that time everyone else shouldn't have been punished. Now I heard as the individual resurfaced, they changed the rules and everything to make it to the individuals or whoever messed up. And I want to say during that time period, I followed all the rules, even though it was expressed that some of the individuals, not all, had displeasure with me going public, going on YouTube, sharing this information. But I felt it was necessary because it was clearly wrong, similar to Eric Snowden, what he came out and did because he felt what they were doing was wrong. And in a similar instance, I'm comparing this to, I felt was inappropriate, was not right. And that's the reason to kind of provide clarification. So to get back on topic with the video, I'm going over key terms. I had you guys look up, please look up Title 28, Section 3002 of the United States Code, subsection 15A. With that particular section at the bottom, you guys will see it unequivocally states the United States is a federal corporation, because there is an individual troll out there who had a channel that tried to say that this is mythology. No, that's a fact. And it actually says when you look it up on Yahoo or Google, whichever search engine you decide to use, it states that unequivocally, by the way. And presidents that come and go, they have served terms of office. They're just figureheads, by the way. Keep that in mind. I'm going to get to the chat to acknowledge some of you guys that are jumping in, by the way, in a little bit, but I'm just trying to stay on topic here. Also went over, please look up the definition of the word corporation. Look up juristic person, what that term means. Please look up the term estate. Look up the definition of estate. With your straw man or your legal person they refer to in the court judicial system, is oftentimes that's actually the juristic person. I'm giving you guys some hints here, but the proper term, one of the terms that it's in the Black's Law Dictionary, it's in Latin, is called in lingus. You want to look up in lingus. It's spelled E as in Edward, N as in Nancy, S as in Sally, L as in Larry, E as in Edward, G as in girl, I as in Icarus, S as in Sam. In lingus, you want to look up in lingus, what that means. You also want to look up res. Just the term res. It stands R-E-S. R as in Robert, E as in Edward, S as in Sally. Res. You want to look up res. That's a separate term. You want to look these up. Not only, they also have online encyclopedias, because some people said in the past that you can't believe everything on the internet, but nowadays that's not true. With the way the future is headed, they're going to eventually, they're forcing everyone to go online. You see how cable's changing and things, so there is credible information that is online. You just have to know where to look it up. But I'm giving you all powerful information. Look this up. You have online encyclopedias, you have Investopedia, you have Wikipedia, by the way, which are excellent for researchers out there that to do research and investigation. And these are key terms will help you understand this high level information that some of you all in the general public are not familiar with. And res is tied to Title 9 of the United States Code that deals with vessel of the United States. When I was learning this information for the first time many years ago, there was a guy, Del Rico, big shout out to Del, by the way, some years ago, helped me, him and his friend Mark at the time, some years ago. I asked a lot of questions. Back in 2004 was the year when I first met them. Around this time of the year, back in 04, I first met them through another guy named Daryl, by the way. And I stayed in touch for a while before I lost contact, but Daryl helped me out a lot, had a lot of questions. He actually had been in the court system. He debated judges and things. So even though I've never really been in the court at that level myself, he would give me scenarios. How can I put it? What's the term that they use? Like examples to help me understand how the judicial system works, how they try to keep this information private. And he found out about the private sector and what to basically, well, some of us didn't know at the time that this information went high up, by the way. And he shared some things. I won't go into all the details, but big shout out to him. Appreciate him for working with me at the time, because I was inquisitive. I asked a lot of questions, but I met him privately through someone else, and as well as Mark, his friend Mark as well. I didn't know Mark by his last name. I just knew him by his first name, but Dale, I won't say his last name. But big shout out to those brothers, and they provided a lot of insight at the time. And that's some other intel, how I not only attended private classes to learn this type of information, where we would give donations because I was hungry for the information, also got a chance to meet some heavy hitters in this, by the way, because everybody's got to start somewhere. Just like martial arts, you start off with the basics. Like in Wing Chun, you start off with Silam Tao, then you move up to Kim Jung, was it Jum Kill, something like that. Forgive me for mispronouncing. Those are the different forms that you learn, but it gives you the basics as you have to move up. Like from white belt, you start off and go up to higher rank, because I also took taekwondo at an actual school. So I'm going over basic information, and it's important that you get the basic information is just as important as the high level information, because you can get the high level information and not understand. A lot of people just want to jump to the top and not understand. You got to start from the bottom and work your way up. It's just no other way to work around it. Now, some of us have the ability where I've got high level processes, high level information, because my comprehension level is at a great capacity. That means I'm an open-minded person. I've heard people say out of sight, out of mind. That deals with people who are open-minded, and I'm inquisitive. I ask a lot of questions, which to get my feet wet when you're hungry for the information, by the way. So I just want to go to the chat section real quick and acknowledge some of the comments in here. So we've gone, some of them I already read. Chino Den 07 says, good to see you still doing your thing. Appreciate you, Chino, for joining. Rich Byfield says, glad to see you still fighting Babylon. Appreciate you, Rich. Moneyboy Film says, facts. Appreciate you, Moneyboy. Let me scroll down. And Chino says, Chum Ku. I'm not sure what that means. If you can explain, actually. D Vroom says, fantastic analysis, my dude. Appreciate you very much. Thank you for the acknowledgement. So to get back on topic, these are key terms that helped wake me up when I first got in the movement. A lot of people say, hey, Dorsey, what do I start off with? Once again, in learning this so-called sovereign citizen information, which I don't use that term. Remember, that's an umbrella term that's used to discredit people from looking into this type of information because they don't want the left hand to know what the right hand is doing and vice versa. They want to keep people dumbed down, suppressed, and controlled. So they want, just like with the news, they want to control the narrative. Remember if ever you watch World News Tonight with David Murrell or Lester Holt, they want to control the narrative. Remember, those guys read from a script and they can't go off script where they give their own opinion. Like, now I like some of the stories, let me say, that they report on positive information when they mention uplifting stuff, but things that deal with like the wars of why Trump pulled the troops out of Syria, they won't go into all the details, how some of those different groups were allies and he didn't want to risk certain U.S. soldiers being killed or losing their lives. And he went into detail about when he has to see families that bring loved ones in that are deceased with flags over the coffins, and that the loved ones scream and cry, and it hurts him so much. So him having compassion for what's happening, he didn't want to risk, because the Turkish people were going to plan on invading whether the U.S. liked it or not. So it was like, he's like, why risk having casualties over there, when they're going to decide to go in there anyway? And they were kind of doing damage control. So I won't get into all this stuff, but the World News Tonight, they paint a one-sided picture because they want to steer the narrative. They want you to look in a particular direction that's just one-sided. They don't want to fully go as in depth like what I'm doing with these terms, because it's like a taboo subject or the elephant in the room, because it may not be appealing, but at the same time they want to like control. You guys get what I'm saying? They want to dictate how you think, like Manchurian. They want Manchurian candidates, basically. So the reason I'm going over this information will help provide clarification at a very microscopic, in-depth level when you really research and investigate the terminology that I'm going over with you, that I've gone over already. So just to recap, I went over straw man is in lingus. Res, you want to have a Black's Law Dictionary. If you can, compare it to the Webster's Dictionary. You might be able to find deals with the Black's Law Dictionary on Amazon or eBay. Some years ago, I purchased mine. I have the 6th edition off of eBay. If you don't have the money where you can't afford one, the few bookstores that are still open, like Barnes and Noble, let me see, libraries, they have them where you can research these terms for free. And you can make photocopies, which are not too expensive for some of you all who may say you may not be able to afford this information yet. So I understand, you could check out Borders books. Borders closed down. Barnes and Noble, some of them, a few bookstores that are left, you can go there. They may have them, which I saw them before. Also the library, just to give you guys a heads up. You want to look up what United States means, the definition of United States, and you want to look up District of Columbia. You want to look up District of Columbia. What that means, these terms have a legal definition, terminologies that they imply with, that's totally separate from what we learned in grade school. Like the word understand, for example, you want to look up, it has a totally different legal meaning versus what we were taught in grade school. It means to comprehend. But did you know in the court system, it means something entirely different? By the way, when you say understand, to stand under, by the way, it means you accept the contract, the agreement. I just gave you guys that. But please do your research on that. You want to look up the Erie Railroad versus Tompkins case law, case of 1938. Erie Railroad versus Tompkins case of 1938. This is very important because there was a gatekeeper, a troll, a minion, did a video a while ago, said what case law is out there to prove all of this stuff they call patriot mythology, like is House Joint Resolution 192 real? Yes, it is real, by the way, and it's codified in the statutes at large, by the way. I think it's statute 4848, section 112, which you can look up, House Joint Resolution 192, and it's also public law 73-10. It was actually a congressional session held many years ago, and you can look up the official documents at the Library of Congress, and the National Archives in Washington, D.C. might have it where you can order certified copies. I have a copy of a certified copy that someone sent me, but also have certified copies of some other things like treaties and stuff like that you can purchase, which proves evidence that these things are real. This is not patriot mythology, as a certain gatekeeper out there and certain trolls and minions will have you believe, because they want to try to spook people to try to steer them away from looking into this type of information. Because once again, they don't want the left hand to know what the right hand is doing, and vice versa. They want to keep you dumbed down and oppressed. They say there's nothing over there, just look the other way. They don't want you to know. This is serious stuff. They don't want you guys to know. That's why I'm repeating myself, and I go over this information to drive my points home, because they truly do not want you to know. And this was expressed to me, and why some of the powers that shouldn't be allegedly didn't want me going on YouTube or going public. However, if I am able to start a Patreon account, God willing, guys, please give me some time. I'm working on my internet situation to have get back with the internet provider I was with before, so I can have better bandwidth and things, and I'll be able to focus. But if not, I'm still working on it. I probably will have a 2-tier level, just to give you guys a heads up. My first level will be $5 a month. Then the elite tier level will be maybe $30 or $40 a month, and that will include having the ability to contact me in person. And I do have powerful information. I can answer questions about the black card, those reversals we were getting some years ago. I can provide evidence, and I'll be willing to talk to anyone, no matter what background you're from. There's unity and diversity, because I do believe in coexistence. So it'll be open if you guys want to support me, if you have the funds. If not, I will still provide information here, of course, but I'll be able to go more in depth. So it'll be a win-win situation for everybody involved if you genuinely have questions, because this basic information, what I've noticed is that people don't understand a lot of the high-level stuff that are getting involved in this redemption information, or they're wondering why things have gotten a lot harder and difficult because gatekeepers and minions. I heard, for example, there was a lady, Yusuf was saying the other night, out of Indiana, that got a letter back from the state that asked, why is she filing a UCC? Is she going to use it to harm people? So they're doing things that are outside, where they're not even based in the law. They're just arbitrarily just denying people, not allowing people to file a public document. They are public servants, by the way, to file commercial documents. And the Secretary of State is a form of like a county registrar. They're just at a state level where they're supposed to allow your documents to be filed, by the way. But because they were having trouble with people putting liens and stuff that were not proper liens in other instances, and people do things that had gotten out of hand, but that doesn't mean that everyone is going to act in that capacity or that way. So just to kind of give you guys a heads up, this is some of the things that have changed throughout the years, that they do watch our videos, by the way. In the past, Eon mentioned this. He used to have a channel called Redress Right, or Legal Redress Commission. And he kind of went over this, and he said they're watching our videos, because I followed him some years ago, by the way. So they're just doing some things, but it'll show you, when you get the basic information down, how to work around these things. And it'll help you, understand the law, the procedures and stuff like that a lot better, how to still circumvent, how to go through and navigate, because they've done a lot of things to try to block people from accessing their exemption account, by the way. Some very mean, cruel stuff. I want to tell you, as they're trying to paint this narrative that the police, for a number of years, for example, you do have bad instances, injustices out there, but you don't want to stereotype or just label one particular group one particular way. But you got to think, for a number of years, who was letting these police officers off? Between prosecutors, lawyers, judges. Remember, they're at a higher capacity than police officers within the judicial system. There's a lot of corruption that exists. They're just as guilty, if not worse, because they determine how long you spend in prison. They're charging your bond privately. That's tied in with your birth certificate behind the scenes. The court CRIS accounts, the court registry input system that's connected to the Federal Reserve. Because remember, when they say they're going to charge you, they're charging your bond. By the way, the exemption account, because that Social Security, everything is all linked in. It's a form of a registered securities instrument. This is going on. And then the county has what's called the CAFR accounts. CAFR is an acronym for Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports. Comprehensive Annual Financial. Those are the CAFR funds. So the court system has the CRIS accounts, court registry input system, that's connected to the Federal Reserve Bank, the centralized bank, by the way. So I'm dropping some jewels for you guys, just some tidbits there, so I'll be able to show you guys documents and stuff if you follow me so far. But just kind of giving you a heads up, you want to look at things from a well-balanced perspective, you know, when getting into this high-level information. So I went over United States, look up the terminology. I went over the definition, Title 28, Section 3002, subsection 15. Look up Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. Look up the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. Now I want to say, I was speaking with someone who called me earlier that I do believe there's a private side to the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, that people who may work there in the public is compartmentalized. But I believe from gathering some information that I was unsure about, there is a private side, by the way, and that's just all I'll leave it at. I was started to go into a private bank that I think they're working with, or it was a couple that was mentioned to me by someone who called me earlier that shared some information, by the way. One of the elders that I've known for a number of years, by the way. Very interesting. You want to look up Edward G. Griffin. You heard me maybe mention this in a previous video, the creature from Jekyll Island. Please look up Edward G. Griffin. You want to look up Bill Steele on YouTube. Bill Steele, he helped do work with the documentary Money Masters. You want to also look up the documentary Monopoly Men. Monopoly Men and Money Masters complement each other. There's also another documentary on the Federal Reserve that has the term that deals with the enslavement of America. I don't remember the exact terminology. You have to look it up on YouTube. And I heard they pushed it down in the algorithm search. So you may have to search up to 8-10 pages or keep scrolling down. But it's a documentary on the Federal Reserve. I hear it's really good. And trust me, please look these documentaries up if you haven't. The enslavement, I just can't remember the exact term, but it's a documentary on the Federal Reserve that deals with the history of the enslavement. But the documentaries Money Masters and Monopoly Men will complement that documentary. You also want to look up this documentary called Changes on the Horizon. You want to look up Changes on the Horizon. It was a part 1 through 3 series, but someone uploaded the full uncut version on YouTube where it's not chopped up. So you want to look up Changes on the Horizon. That will provide clarification. Now, the first part of that documentary gets kind of esoteric into the Saint Germain Trust. I'm not saying that I co-sign all of that. Some of the things when they get into some of the esoteric stuff, when they talked about the cloning or whatever, you know, I can't prove those things. But some of the other information in there was very educational and will help you connect and piece this information together. Trust me. That's why I said you can't be a weekend warrior with this information. You have to look at this stuff in depth, research, and investigate it at that level, forensically. This is like forensic research, very in depth. You want to look up the Dred Scott case in the Black's Law Dictionary section. This is evidence that Black Americans are Moors. This is in the Black's Law Dictionary. You got to ask, why did they put this in a legal dictionary? The Dred Scott case, Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. I know it's in there because I have that dictionary, you know, very interesting. You want to look up the term, these are also quotations, legal entity. Look up legal entity. By the way, you want to look up this quotation, legal person. Well, it's also a definition. Look up legal person, by the way. Please look up legal person. And look up legal entity, which I just went over once again. Looks like we may have someone who just joined in the chat. Let me see. Chino says, Wing Chun set. Says hours upon hours of research. Yes, thank you for confirming. Yes, this is a lot of research. I do apologize to you guys. I'm not trying to bore you here, but this information goes very in depth. It's very important. Also, since I went over a lot of stuff dealing with the legal system, by the way, the court system, I won't go over that part. Might go over that maybe in another video. But members of the Bar Association enjoy a higher rank above regular citizens. You know, they're issued a P number through their county to practice the law. This, in a sense, gives them dual citizenship. Lawyers and even paralegals, they issue a P number, by the way. And when they take you on as a client, remember, you're declaring yourself incompetent to handle your commercial affairs. You're saying you're incompetent. So that lawyer you hire, even a paralegal, you've given a power of attorney to administer your estate, or your in lingus, your straw man, your legal person, aka legal person, trust account, through acquiescence, through your signature. So remember, when you sign things through your signature is your most valuable possession. Did you know within the mortgage, which really means dead pledge, when they talk about property, real estate is, in a sense, we're not talking about the physical land. It's a difference between the physical land and the buildings. Did you know your property is actually your signature? That's why your signature is very important. They have you sign a lot of documents at closing time, by the way. If you're applying, going for a house, that's a whole nother discussion within itself. I was woken up to something I was working on, trying to do myself, believe it or not, is acquire a home. Because when I first got involved in this information, I didn't know anything about that. It was more expensive to rent versus owning, but you really don't own as you think. It's actually a form of renting. That's a whole nother discussion. I'm not going to go there. That's just a little bit that because I was working on getting a house myself, by the way. I'm still, renting, unfortunately. But I've woken up to some things, and some things were shared with me privately, by the way. And this is one of the ways the elites use to keep people controlled and in the state that they're in through these contracts, and able to price gouge you and charge you more money as well. And that's how they also use these jobs as a weapon against us, to keep you from organizing, to keep you, oppressed and in the condition that you're in, by the way. I think I had some more notes with me. I kind of went over that information already. I went over the police departments, but I won't touch on that. Well, I was comparing it with the legal system, by the way. All right, it looks like we got a super chat. Let's see, someone in there sent me. Duvall says, "Can you do a video on Ripple, IMF, BIS, the YouTube channel, to the Lifeboats Square Media? They discuss connections between the three and Federal Reserve." Okay, I would have to definitely do my research, work on that. If you want to shoot me, what I can do is I can make a note of that. I have done a video in the past where I discussed the connection, by the way, to from the Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, because some people sell that as though that's a replacement for the centralized banking system. That because there's a lot of corruption, of course, you guys already know with the Federal Reserve, and some people sell the cryptos as though it's the savior, and there's some things that some of the very people who were behind, let's say the good cabal people that split or broke away allegedly, are behind the cryptos, but it isn't totally scot-free as far as some of the corruption or manipulation, because cryptos are now manipulated. It was last year where I had bought into Litecoin, for example, when it was 244, January of 2018. I bought my first Litecoin purchase on Coinbase, and when it was super high, when I'm thinking it was going to go up, and then it shot down after that, but I still held on to it. I didn't sell, by the way. And there was an elder told me he found out the futures market, which I don't know as much about, but I have kind of an understanding through price manipulation. I do follow Bill Wixbeer. Hopefully, forgive me if I'm not pronouncing his name correctly. I always get his name mixed up. Currency 365, of course, has some good videos as well. I'm trying to play catch up and learn what I can, but I did a video going into some of the history about Bitcoin, and that guy who allegedly was the founder of Bitcoin, the real founder, is in court, by the way. It's pretty heavy stuff, because the guy they say started the Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, was actually not the founder. The guy, when they arrested that Japanese guy in California, and that was done by mistake, he said at the time he was arrested on video. He believes someone made up the name, but they used his actual name and said he was the founder, so it caused some controversy. So a guy came out as like a whistleblower and explained, I think his name was Craig Wright. By the way, you want to look up Craig Wright and the connection that he had. And he did show some evidence, by the way, that was connected to that. So to D Rooms, I appreciate your super chat. And to go over, can you do a video on Ripple /IMF? Yeah, can you explain in a more detail specifically? Because you have /Ripple. Yeah, Ripple is tied in with the banks. I heard Ripple is supposed to work where it's going to be like kind of like a payment processor to help facilitate transactions with the bank. I heard it's supposed to be, you know, really big down the road, but it's going to take some time, of course. But they are behind the manipulation of the cryptocurrencies, which just like precious metals, silver and gold, and that's a problem, by the way. And I kind of brought this up when I was invited to those private calls a couple years ago with the so-called TDA accounts, the secret accounts, and why people were getting reversals and stuff. I can go into more detail about that down the road. And I brought up the fact that silver has not gone above $20 per ounce since 2013. I remember when it was over $30 an ounce, and then they pushed it down, and it hasn't been back above 30. Now, it had been climbing a little bit. It had been fluctuating. I saw it go as high as 19 maybe a month or two, a couple months ago, and then it pulled back down a little bit. But there's a problem. But by no means am I expert. This is why I give a disclaimer. This is not financial advice, by the way. These are my opinions. This is why I encourage you guys to do research, and these documentaries will help explain some of this information, even go more in depth about the shadow government and explain who's behind what, and will really help connect the pieces of what's really happening out here, by the way, guys. So I appreciate you, D Rooms, for the super chat. Rich Byfield says better research, better search result from DuckDuckGo. Yes, I've heard about DuckDuckGo. Yeah, that is a private research search engine, by the way. Thank you. A friend of mine shared that with me some time ago. And if you guys can, if you can afford, no, VPNs can be costly for some, by the way. And then I have to, you know, I encourage you all to do the research, because it's been stated that some VPNs out there, virtual private networks, are not as secure as some of you all might think. So it's really important to learn as much as you can about IT, information technology, computers, because I'm hearing that not all VPNs that you pay for, you want to make sure what you're purchasing is properly encrypting your network, because it was stated that if you have like internet providers such as AT&T or Comcast, they still might be able to ping you. And then remind you, the government they're working on quantum computing that can decrypt any type of encryptions that are out there, I heard, that can break through. Remember, Apple didn't want to turn over the keys to their phone, but the government, or the FBI, I heard, they hired a hacker. They actually mentioned this some years ago, and they were able to crack the iPhone and get the private keys or whatever. By the way, and there's another situation where there was like a girl, a young lady that died, and the law enforcement were trying to go into her phone to help assist to track down who possibly, unfortunately, in this situation, killed this young lady, because they used that, of course, and they couldn't get into her phone because her password and everything was locked. So they needed like the encryption keys, and I think it was some legal stuff or whatever. So now, you know, the government, they made a lot of the big corporations, internet providers and stuff, turn over, you know, the private data. And that's a whole nother video I could do on that separately, by the way, at big tech giants. So D Room says I have to explain it over email because it's too long to explain via chat. Okay. I'll see if I can work on that. Give me some time. You can email me, DRooms, at Dorsey's Resource 2017 at gmail.com. Dorsey's Resource 2017 at gmail.com. The next person, Track Holics, says, where can you get information to access your TDA account? Okay, trying to think offhand. Just go online, do a Google or Yahoo search engine just on it in particular to get familiarized, I say, with the movement. I'm kind of going past my time. I'm gonna have to go on a little bit. I would love to spend more time with you guys, but I am on a time restraint, by the way. But that is a good question. Go on YouTube as well if there's any information still left from certain content creators, because there's a gatekeeper, a troll that was actively in individuals trying to have people shut down because people were getting reversals. Now, I had a situation, something I was having success from, and I'm still having success from it, and I did share it privately with the subscriber that had contacted me, by the way, with one of the accounts that I had used, but I wasn't sure because I was unable, because of all the privacy nowadays. You know how they only let you see like the last 4 digits of your credit card number. So I couldn't remember which account that I used, if it was the one from the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago or the Treasury. But I did find success with something in particular with no reversals, but I won't go into that. At least I might share it on Patreon, because this gatekeeper that's out there, what they do is they have individual spies and moles that will troll my channel, that will report and call these entities and try to have it shut down. And by the way, what was mentioned to me years ago about these TDA accounts, they used to actually go through with no reversals. I forgot to mention that. I often from a very reliable source. And I'm gonna get to you. I'm gonna read the chat in a little bit before I shut things down, D. So just bear with me. But that's a good question. Getting back to the chat, by the way, where can you get info to access the TDA? There is still some information that is online, because I actually looked some things up. So go online, Trackaholics, look up the information, even on Heather Tucci, the people that she was working with. There was conference calls that may still be online. Look up the Real Truth Call. The Real Truth Call, you may have to go back in the archives. They had some information, and I'll be able to go in more in depth why people were getting reversals. And I want to say, yes, the Federal Reserve is blocking those accounts, by the way, and they used to go through many years ago, but because some things raised, a red flag was brought up, and they changed the whole system around. But that code that you see, that return code R34, that's a banking code or whatever that was read by some people. They did change some things, by the way. So hopefully I gave you some good clarification right there. So before I shut things down, I'm gonna read this last chat. I gotta get ready to go, guys, so just bear with me. D Room says, has to deal with clearing nostro vostro accounts that banks, when transferring money from one bank to another, something like a few $100 trillion in US dollars currency that is technically illiquid. Okay, that's above that's above my level right there, but I can look into it and find out. I am aware of high level transactions. I had a subscriber, he was actually the first YouTube subscriber that reached out to me, by the way. Some of you all might remember Tremaine Williams was his name, by the way, and I haven't been in touch with him in a long time. You know, we eventually go our separate ways, but he was able to help me with the information we exchanged at the time. And from what he stated to me, he used to work for the New York Stock Exchange, and he also he facilitated transactions in the billions, high amount. He would get a commission like off a percentage, and stated to me he was a facilitator, which was different from like a broker, similar to like a broker, but he was telling me at the time, technically not a broker. Now, to get into some of these high level transactions too, he stated to me, you have to have a prospectus. A prospectus is similar to like a business plan. Business plan, like what are your articles of incorporation, your mission statement, because these elites, they're going to do a background check on you too, by the way, because they want to make sure that the people getting access to this information are going to be responsible handling it. This is a high level stuff. So the prospectus is like a business plan. That's why if you've heard of humanitarian projects, your humanitarian goals, and they would have you type up documents. Like I did a video a while ago on humanitarian projects. You guys would have to scroll my previous videos to find which video that is. Some time ago, because I had some ideas, God willing, if I came into you know, this wealth, and they want you to do things through other entities. They don't want you to be public. I mentioned I want to donate to food banks like Gleaners, Forgotten Harvest. It was one of my humanitarian projects, Salvation Army. You know, I want to donate to renewable energies like solar power, wind turbines, for example, as we're, you know, moving down the road. You know, there's different projects. I also thought about different activist things like domestic violence shelters, men's activist groups, empowering people, like things of that sort. There could be a number of things. There's different ideas, by the way, for humanitarian projects or goals. But I feel like also water. People are going to need a lot of water, like water filtration systems, like what Flint has gone through. I would like to do something big on a large level. Like say if I had, because I would really need at the high level, I've gone over some of this information prior, but I would need like a secretary or someone like a dedicated assistant. It would be great if I could meet someone from the private sector that could walk me through. But they do keep things very controlled at the high level stuff when it comes to dealing with large sums of money, because the nonprofits, the 501c3s that are on the public side, those are just statutory. That's at a certain level, certain plateau. So just keep that in mind, by the way. So I would have to do research into like maybe 508. I would want to incorporate myself differently. But if I had to start off as a 501c3, there's ways I think you can utilize it to be more private and help out at the same time. That's kind of the gray area. The high level elites, they want you to use other entities. They don't want things like attached to your legal person name where you're public or attracting too much attention to yourself, by the way. So I would probably use a different name than Dorsey's Resource, but I could possibly use that, by the way. But remember, there's a difference between 501c3, that's an actual IRS tax code, and that's under statutory jurisdiction. There's other types of entities that can do nonprofit work, and that's all. I'll pretty much leave it at. You guys have to do your research. I heard that the members of the House in California were working on something. I think that they had looked into 501c4s. And then I've also heard, I don't know too much information about that. I did a video kind of touching on this in 508s, but that gets at a higher capacity. So thank you for the question in kind of relation to your statement, D. Vrooms. Appreciate you joining. So with that said, I'm going to get ready to shut things down, guys. I appreciate you all for joining Dorsey's Resource. You can follow me on Facebook at Dorsey's Resource. I'm also on YouTube, obviously, of course. I'm on Twitter at Dorsey's Resource. I'm also on Instagram, Dorsey's Resource _2019, by the way. So I probably have to post the links in the description. I'm really not on there that much. Maybe I'm a little bit more on Twitter, Facebook, but that's how you can follow me. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Hit the notification bell so whenever I put out, you know, new videos or new content, you guys will be notified by YouTube in the upper right hand corner, by the way. And I'm your host, John Dorsey. I want to thank you guys for joining me. I appreciate you all once again. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. Until next time, guys, take it easy.